Gaby es una persona muy cercana a nosotros, es como parte de nuestra familia, siempre ha estado dispuesta a ayudarnos y a escucharnos con nuestras dudas sobre la paternidad, y en nuestro caso, que estamos solos en este país, ha sido como de mucha ayuda.
Es un gran apoyo para nuevos padres, y más aún si están en nuestra situación, que somos extranjeros, que nuestra familia y amigos, como dice Carla, están en otro país, lejos. Entonces sí, viene muy bien el programa para apoyarse tanto emocional y como anímicamente, y bueno, en varios aspectos del programa, que nos ayuda a seguir adelante con esta nueva aventura.
Te ayuda como a ver los distintos recursos que tiene la comunidad para nuevos papás, entonces creo que es de gran ayuda.
No queda mucho que agregar, pero lo veo de la misma forma.
Que hemos aprendido algunas cosas aquí y pues los han ayudado, como este programa los ha ayudado para seguir creciendo a la bebé, como con buenos consejos y así.
Sí, y creo que también ha sido muy importante el tema de apoyarnos con el libro y saber
Calling to order the Planning Commission meeting on September 21st, 2023. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting of the Planning Commission with participants both in person and digitally. The public may participate digitally in meetings by sending comments to pbscommissions@mendocinocounty.org or orally via telecomment in lieu of personal attendance. All public comment will be made available to the commissioners, staff, and the general public after processing by staff, and can be viewed as attachments to this meeting's agenda on the Planning Commission agenda page. To submit public comments via telecomment, please use the telecomment form found at www.mendocinocounty.org/government/planning-building-services/meeting-agendas. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Jones?
Present.
Commissioner Purnell?
Here.
Commissioner Pollan?
Here.
Chair Wiedemann?
Here. And agenda item number 2, do we have determination of legal notice?
All matters on the agenda have been properly served.
All right, thank you. And may we have anything from the director's report today?
Yes, thank you. Julia Krog, Planning and Building Services Director. So a couple updates for you. We did submit a request for extension for the LEAP grant funding for the Inland Zoning Code update. We believe that that will be granted, but we have not yet received the formal confirmation. That would be a year extension on the current grant. So looking to wrap up work on that by September of 2024 would be the goal. Then on August 31st, the department was notified by the California Coastal Commission that we were granted an award for a sea level rise resiliency strategy. That's a grant of $345,000. And we're going to begin work on that as soon as we get the executed grant agreement and go out for an RFP to hire a consultant to prepare that work. We'll be coordinating with both the incorporated cities on the coast as well as part of that work. And in addition, on September 12th, we released 3 requests for proposals related to our overall local coastal program update grant. So the first is related to visual and archaeological resources. The second is a State Route 1 traffic and highway capacity study. And the third is for a coastal groundwater study. And the responses are due by October 24th for those RFPs. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do any commissioners have questions for her report? Commissioner Parnell?
I do. Just a couple follow-up questions, and congrats on that new grant. That's really great. With that sea level rise grant, what type of projects or plans do you anticipate being able to accomplish with that?
Thank you for that question. So the scope of the project is planning and development of a coordinated and organized sea level rise resiliency strategy for the county. So the overall goal is to develop a roadmap for the future project development in Mendocino County by establishing baseline conditions for sea level rise, forecasting potential impacts from sea level rise in multiple scenarios and timescales, and developing a list of priority resilience or mitigation projects for which future funding can be pursued. So there's no specific projects identified at this time. It's really to do the base work to determine what projects may need to be accomplished in the future.
Yeah, where to focus. Great,
Yep.
thank you. And then I'm hopeful that the extension on the LEAP grant will be granted, just because I think we're going to need that time. And presuming that it is, what would you imagine the timeline being? Of course, the age-old question now about the Planning Commission receiving an admin draft or just, a public draft on that. But then also whether or not any components of that zoning ordinance will be coming to us separately, thinking in particular about the vacation rental ordinance.
Sure, thank you for that question. The inland zoning code update right now, I think the most reasonable timeline would be to hope to have an admin draft in front of this commission here in early part of 2024. So we're still doing some tweaks on the internal administrative draft with staff before we're ready to bring that forward to the commission. And we have separately broken out the inland zoning code amendment for vacation home rentals. Just given the amount of public interest within that particular subject, we felt that it's best that that actually be handled separately from the overall update, because it seems that it needs some additional community outreach and really to have it driven by the stakeholders. We did get input from our Board of Supervisors on the potential scope, and that was in August. And they have really asked for us to look at creating sort of two tiers, one tier for hosted rentals where you have a property owner residing on the property, and a second tier for non-hosted rentals where you don't have a property owner residing on the property. So we're working on that. Steven Schweitzer in our office is taking the lead on that project, and we're hoping to start doing some public outreach later this year. So.
Great, thank you for that. And just one more follow-up question on that. Do you anticipate that the vacation rental ordinance broken out from the rest of it will be ahead of or behind the other zoning ordinance?
I am not certain as of yet, but we can certainly keep this commission updated. I think we'll have a better picture once we go out to the community and sort of get a better vision of what the scope of this project may look like.
Okay, thanks, Julia.
Commissioner Jones, any questions for the director?
No questions, just an offering. And that is that I just updated the accessory dwelling unit ordinance for the city of Fort Bragg and the urban lot split and 2-unit development ordinances, which are now required by the state of California. I know most of the county won't have to do the urban lot split, but there are some areas actually where you are obligated to do it. And I'd just be happy to email those to you if you want to use them as starting points, because put a fair amount of work into them and they'd be free to you. So, yeah.
All right, Commissioner Pollan, any questions? And Chair doesn't have any questions. Thank you. Let's move on to agenda item number 4, matters from the public. Members of the public are welcome to address the Planning Commission on items not listed on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is prohibited by law from taking action on matters not on the agenda. Individuals wishing to address the Planning Commission under matters from the public may do so via email or Zoom. For information on these methods, call the Planning and Building Department at 707-234-6650 or visit www.mendocino-org/government/planning-building-services-meeting-agendas. All correspondence will be attached to the item and made available online on the Planning Commission's agendas webpage. If members of the public logged into Zoom meeting wish to speak under public expression and have not completed the telecomment form, please use the raise hand feature to allow staff to add you to the meeting. Do we have any requests for telecomment under public expression?
I have not received any.
I have no members of the public on Zoom.
All right, thank you. Are there any body in the room, our room, wishing to speak to the Planning Commission for public expression? Seeing none, I will then close the public expressions and move on to our consent calendar, which is we have the minutes to approve August 3rd, 2023. Do I have any fellow commissioners with revisions or comments regarding the August 3rd, 2023? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I would move that we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
You need to open public comment
Yeah, I will.
before.
Do you, on minutes?
Yes.
It's not a hearing.
Do I really have to always open public comment?
Or minutes you do, yeah.
You do for the minutes? Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Fascinating.
All right. I open public comment for the minutes. And do we have any public comments for the August 3rd minutes?
No members of the public on Zoom.
Seeing none. Okay, I take it back to the commission. And do I have a motion to adopt those minutes?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Commissioner Jones seconds. Can
Yeah, I would just suggest, yeah, check. Thank you. Yeah,
All
the
right.
phones interfere with the microphones. Thank you.
we have a first and a second?
Okay,
Do we have a roll call vote?
yes. Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Chair, Commissioner Purnell,
Yes.
Chair Wiedemann.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. And so we move on to agenda item number 6A, our regular calendar, case number A, 2022-0003, Ward House Agricultural Preserve to establish a Williamson Act contract over 590 plus or minus acres in the Laytonville area. I'm opening the public hearing, and I will ask the clerk if we have any correspondence and telephone calls.
I have not received any correspondence on this matter.
All right. And now, may I have staff presentation, please?
Good morning, Commissioners. Dirk Larson, Project Planner. The project before you today is a request to be included in a Williamson Act contract. The applicant is Heidi Wordhouse. This is a 590-acre property. It's made up of 8 parcels. This project is exempt from CEQA.
Mr. Larson, I can hear you, but I don't know that you're speaking into your microphone. So if there are people not in the
Okay.
room.
You want me to start over?
Sure.
How do I back up for this here? Okay, so let's start again. This project is A 2022-003. Heidi Wordhouse is the applicant. This is a request for a creation of 590 acres made up of 8 parcels under a Williamson Act contract. It is exempt from CEQA for section 15317. Specifically, establishment of ag preserves is exempt from the Quality Act. Subject parcel is located 9.3 miles north of Laytonville. It's situated along the Eel River, just east of the community of Spy Rock. This is a remote area of the county and surrounded primarily by open spaces and larger ownerships. There are very few developed properties in this area. Access to the ranch is taken off Simmerly Ranch Road, which kind of ties into Spy Rock to the west. Livestock grazing has been the primary ag use here for decades. Sheep free-range this area in the beginning, and then ranchers converted over to cattle. There are existing contracts to the north, and then across the Eel River to the east. The general plan and zoning designation is rangeland. For section 4.2A, only land zoned ag, rangeland, or forest land are eligible to qualify for ag preserve. The contiguous 590-acre ownership, made up of 8 parcels, is located on mostly moderate slopes, kind of a mix of open grasses and hardwoods. Per section 4.3B of the Williamson Act Policies and Procedures, an ag preserve shall consist of no less than 100 acres, provided that in order to meet this requirement, 2 or more parcels may be combined if they are contiguous. It is mapped grazing land in the farmland classification system, and livestock grazing, as mentioned, has been the primary agricultural use in this area historically. I'd like to share with you an applicant's statement. The ranch contains extant roads, 2 storage containers, 1 woodshed, 3 small ag-exempt barns, a shop, hoop houses, 1 residence, and gardens. The structures are used for agricultural and domestic purposes. All extant structures are permitted or in the permitting process. The project site, as it exists before applying as an ag preserve under the Williamson Act, is a ranch of 590 acres, made up of 8 parcels, running a closed herd of grass-fed Highland cattle, Jersey, and American guinea hog for private clientele. Cattle graze each of the 8 parcels. Cattle have run on the land for the past 12 years, even though we are only now seeking an ag preserve designation. As highlighted, the project does meet the eligibility requirements and is consistent with the policies and procedures of the Williamson Act. The owner's reported income exceeds the minimum threshold requirements of $2,000 gross annual income, or $2.50 per acre, under Section 5.3D of said policies. And then finally, it was referred out to the Resource Lands Protection Committee and also the Ag Commissioner for review. Neither party had any objections or comments on this project, and staff is recommending approval and available for any questions.
So Commissioner Jones, do you have any questions for staff?
How about if you don't start with me? Is that okay?
Okay, great. Commissioner Pollan.
My perennial question on these Williamson Act ones is why has it not been in Williamson Act already?
I think this owner, as I say, started buying up this area, I think, as indicated, like 12 to 15 years ago. I do know that the Pinchas family used to free-range cattle out here. They'd roam the whole hillside up to Island Mountain. So why they never approached the county for a contract previously, I do not know. You'd have to ask them.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Commissioner Parnell?
No questions.
And Chair has no questions. And thank you for the staff presentation. And now I'd like to ask the applicant for a presentation, if they are if they're telecomment or...
Yes, I have the owner Heidi on Zoom.
All right, thank you. Please state your name.
Hello, I'm sorry, your video is lagging behind your audio, so I'm going to guess what you're saying here. My name is Heidi Wordhouse Dykema. I actually live on the 590 acres we have here, and the commissioner had a question as to why we haven't been in the Williamson Act to date. And it's a fairly easy question. Up to this point, we have been able to financially support the full tax burden, even though we were running an ag concern. The situation has changed in the last few years within our family circumstances. And in order to keep the ranch going, let's just say that the tax savings provided by the Ag Preserve would allow us to continue doing the ranch work that we're currently doing now. It would allow me to pass this ranch on to my disabled son, who I've been training up in how to handle the cows, how to deal with the clients. And so we're really hoping that the commission, I don't know if you vote to approve or you send a recommendation forward to approve to the board, But we're really hoping that you're going to be able to help support our family ranch by doing that at this point. We were proud to be able to pay the additional tax receipts in previous years and help support the county that way. And we're hoping that the county will now support us in continuing our agricultural endeavors, I guess.
All right. Anything else from the applicant or any other applicant?
I don't know, this is the first time I've ever applied for an ag preserve, so I don't really know what you're looking for. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
We can have everybody out for a
Okay,
picnic
well,
with the cows.
hang on the line, and I'll open that up to my fellow commissioners if they have any direct questions to the applicant. Seeing none, I think you're fine, and I think you did a fine presentation of answering the question why you didn't have a Williamson Act approved prior. Thank you very much. And with that, I will open it up for public comment, and if there's anybody in the room or telecomments ready to give any kind of comment for this application, do we have anybody?
No members of the public on Zoom.
And I don't see anybody in the audience on this. All right, there you go. And we have no virtual. So I'm just going to now go back to staff. Do you have any final remarks at this point?
Not at this time, thank you.
All right. And I'll ask the applicant if you have any final remarks at this point.
I do have one final remark, and I would like to offer my sincere thanks to the Planning and Building member, Dirk Larson, for his extensive work presenting on our case number and pulling together that PowerPoint. It was a beautifully done job, and I'd actually like a copy, Dirk, if I can get that from you later.
All right, thank you. And with that, and now I'm going to take it back to the commission and...
Commissioner, can you close public
Oh,
comment?
yes, and I close public comment. Thank you. What would I do without you?
Wandering in the woods.
Yeah. So, Commissioner Pollan, do you have any further comments or questions?
No.
Commissioner Jones?
I don't have any as it pertains to this one, but I guess I just have a thought process. And it's probably irrelevant to the project, but it just came to me. Looking at the Google Maps of this area, there's clearly a lot of hoop houses. And I don't know, I just wonder like the compatibility with hoop house development and ag preserve. To me, they seem a little, like the intent of the Williamson Act is to protect land for agriculture and by giving people lower taxes, and it seems like hoop houses create a lot of income, so maybe that's not needed. But I know it's not relevant to this project at all, and I'm just putting it out there as a thought. That's it.
And could we have some comment on that subject from staff?
Sure, yeah. Thank you for that question. Russ Ford, Senior Planner. So a couple of years ago, the board updated the policies and procedures document for Williamson Act and made the determination that cannabis was a compatible use. So it falls into the general bucket of compatible uses along with structures and anything that's not in ag production, which means that it's allowed on the property so long as it does not exceed 5 acres or 15% of the contracted area, whichever is less.
But Russ, just to clarify, it's not a qualifying use,
Right.
correct?
Correct. You cannot get into ag preserve solely with cannabis, but if you have a qualifying operation, you can have cannabis alongside of it.
Right. All right. And thank you for that clarification. And so Commissioner Parnell? Did I will know. I have Pollan and Parnell, so it's like...
You'll get it by the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe in you.
Yeah.
Well, this one's in my district, and I think that this is just a perfect case of why the Williamson Act exists, in order to support families continuing to preserve and conserve land through agriculture. And so I am prepared to not only support this, but make the recommendation to the board to approve this today.
All
So
right.
if there's other comments, we'll take those first.
Yes, thank you. So Commissioner Pollan.
No comments.
And I, as the chair, I really think this is I'm very supportive of this being a Williamson Act, and having the support to continue the ranch is, I think, a real basis for why the Williamson Act exists. And with that, I will close the public hearing, and and I'll invite a motion from the commission.
I would like to move that by resolution, the Planning Commission recommend approval of A 2022-003 to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the findings contained in the resolution and attached Exhibit A.
I'll second.
There you go.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Purnell,
Yes?
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Chair Wiedemann.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for your hard work on keeping the ranch. With that, we'll move to, now, I want to say there's I have a memorandum here for item number 6B on our calendar, which is the case RE 2023-001 Hekaroth. Do you want to speak to that memorandum?
Sure, absolutely.
Julia.
So, yeah, this memorandum staff has posted is because we have determined that this project actually only requires action by the Board of Supervisors. So as such, we would request pulling it from the agenda today because the Planning Commission does not have any authority over this particular type of cancellation application. And no action is
Right.
necessary on that. This is just informational only.
Thank you. I just wanted that clarification to be in the record. All right, thank you very much. So we move on to back to our regular calendar of case U 2022-0011 Smith. Major use permit to use an existing single-family residence as a short-term rental per Mendocino County Code, Section 20.164.015L. So with that, I open the public hearing, and I ask the clerk if we have any correspondence or telephone calls.
I have not received any items to post to the website.
Okay, and we have no hands up.
No members of the public on Zoom.
All right, thank you. And then I'll have staff presentation, please.
Thank you. Good morning. It's Keith Gronendijk, planner with Mendocino County. I'll start with a PowerPoint presentation and refer back to individual slides as needed. So this is use permit 2022-11 for a vacation rental home. The subject parcel is just north of the city of Fort Bragg and east of State Route 1. Here's a map of the site. And here's an aerial of the residence, and you can see Jane Lane here, and Highway 1 is to the west. There's a private runway on the eastern side of the property. It's not a public use airport, so they have to have permission to land or take off. And here's a APN page of the property showing the surrounding property sites and sizes, I suppose. And here's some shots from the property that the applicant submitted. This is looking west towards the Pacific Ocean. It's well landscaped. And this is looking east towards the runway. And here's a picture of the split zoning and general plan designations. On the eastern side is industrial, limited industrial, and on the west is rural residential. And Jane Lane down there on the south. And one more, or two more. This is our maps of the zoning showing the split zoning and general plan designations. And there's topo map. And the property is located within the industrial and rural residential 5-acre minimum general plan designation and the limited industrial and rural residential 5-acre minimum zoning district. It is also within the floodplain overlay district. The property is currently developed with a 4,325 square foot single family residence, a 1,431 square foot garage, 3 additional outbuildings, a potable water well, a septic system, a propane tank, let me get back to this, and artificial pond and electrical utilities. Surrounding general plan designations and zoning districts are similar to the subject property. The project proposal was found to be exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act per section 15301, a class 1 exemption that finds that the operation, repair, maintenance, permitting, leasing, licensing, or minor alteration of existing public or private structures, facilities, mechanical equipment, or topographical features involving negligible or no expansion of use beyond that existing at the time of the lead agency's determination are exempt from CEQA. In the general plan and zoning consistency finding of the resolution, it is stated that the project is partially consistent with the general plan. Let me get back to this. And the zoning district, in that with the split general plan designation and the split zoning districts, residential uses are allowed in the RR5 designation and district, but not allowed in the industrial designation and district. Only a portion of the residence closest to the runway, as shown here, is located within the industrial designation and district. In a staff report for a general plan and rezone from the early 1990s, I believe it was initiated by Mendocino County, a paragraph in the report states, the Fort Bragg Airport Industrial Area was added to the general plan and zoning proposal in February 1991 when a building permit for a single-family residence was checked for zoning compliance. The review revealed that the boundaries of the industrial classification and zone were not precisely located in relation to surrounding property lines. The location was critical because a single-family residence is not allowed on an industrial zone. In checking with the Mendocino County Assessor's Office, their records indicate that the property was first assessed with the residence in 1990. An address file for the property could not be located to determine when a building permit was applied for. Staff feels that the residence was constructed prior to the general plan designation and the zoning district being partially changed to industrial. As such, a portion of the residence on the property is in compliance with the rural residential designation and district, while a smaller portion of the residence on the property is not in compliance with the industrial designation and district, which is the reasoning behind staff's determination of it being partially consistent with the Mendocino County General Plan designation and the zoning district. Excuse me. Staff recommends by resolution approve the requested use permit 2022-11 as proposed by the applicant based on the approved facts and findings and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A. That concludes my presentation.
If I may, Julia Krog, Planning and Building Services Director. So we did prepare some revisions to the findings in the resolution, and if it would be acceptable to the Commission, I'd like to share my screen now and show those.
Thank you.
Thinking. There we go. Okay. So this is on page 1 of the resolution, finding number 1, and staff has just revised the language here because since the property does have an existing single-family residence, room and board is an allowed accessory use within an existing single-family residence. So the revision here says that the project is consistent with the general plan designations and zoning districts per MCC chapters 20.048 and 20.096. The proposed project to utilize an existing single-family residence for room and board is an allowable accessory use when a site has an existing single-family residence such as this property. And that would conclude that finding. And then finding 2A, staff recommends revising this to read, the project is consistent with the general plan designations of rural residential and limited industrial. The use of an existing single-family residence for room and board is an allowable accessory use when a site has an existing single-family residence, such as this property. The project is consistent with all other provisions of the general plan, and then keep the second paragraph here as originally stated. And that concludes the recommended changes.
All right, thank you. And does the, excuse me, I bring it back to the commission, and Commissioner Jones, do you have any comments?
I have a question, and it's on the building sketch that was submitted by the applicant, which is page 22 of the whole PDF for this project. And that building sketch shows 2 buildings as well as a storage facility, and it looks like both are single-family residences. And the staff report and the request is kind of silent as to the applicability of this to the second residence. And I guess, I'm not really sure looking at the aerial map, because it's a little weird, like the aerial map geography doesn't really match what is shown on their sketch, so I'm not really sure what's the reality. But I do see that there are, 3 different buildings, and it looks like the one that's to the north of the shed might be some sort of residence, and that appears to be more purely on the industrial zoning district. So I just would like some clarification about kind of what the status of that second building is.
I noticed that too, and Keith Dornadike, planner. I'm not sure, you'd probably want to ask the property owner. I'm not sure what the...
If I may, I believe the single-family residence is a 2-story structure, so I believe that second floor plan you're seeing there is actually the second floor.
So we're saying it's one unit, right? One house.
Yeah, I believe the applicant is here in the audience, so we can hear from the applicant.
Okay, great. All right. And you'll be able to present that in a minute.
It wasn't obvious from the sketch.
Okay. Commissioner Jones, do you have any other comment?
Yeah, just if the applicant could clarify what that other building is. Maybe it's the airplane hangar. I have no idea, but just some clarity. In a minute.
In a minute.
Yeah.
All right. And so that's it for you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Pollan?
No questions at this time.
Parnell, Commissioner Parnell?
None at this time, thank you.
And I have none at this time. And with that, then, I will ask the applicant to do their presentation. Please come to the mic and state your name.
Ms. Smith, can you please speak into the microphone for people that are not in the room? Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. My name is April Smith. To answer your question, that portion nearest the airport is an indoor pool, so nobody will be sleeping there.
Okay. All right. And that just for clarification, that the floor plan is the second floor is on the presentation of the floor plan. The sketch to the right is the second floor.
It is the second floor. There's two.
Right.
It's a 2-story home.
All right. Thank you. And would you like to do your presentation?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me here today. Believe me, I don't want to be here. I would prefer that I did not inherit this house, because that would mean that my mom and Charlie would still be alive. I hope to retire to Fort Bragg, where I was born and raised, later in life, but unfortunately it happened too soon. Right now I have long-term renters in there. I've been going through this application process for about 1.5 years. And I have the long-term renters in there, and they're great. And I have no reason to have them move. But if they do move, it is a very large residence. It's very costly to maintain. And the majority of people who are working and living in Fort Bragg may not be able to afford the rent there. And so far, I've spent a lot of my inheritance just maintaining the property. I am planning on moving home someday. I am from Fort Bragg. I understand the safeguards that are put in place to protect the community and to protect the people who are local trying to find a place to live. I know all the problems with finding housing there. But I'm not using this home just to make money. I'm using this home because it's my home, and I want to move there someday. But I also need to be able to afford it. And if these people do move out, I may have a really hard time finding somebody to pay the amount of rent it costs me just to cover the monthly bills. Having a manicured 5-acre piece of land in Fort Bragg is not cheap to maintain just for the gardening purposes. And I don't want it to go, back to the land. I want to keep it beautiful, and I want to keep it how my mom and Charlie had it. And I want to move there someday. My husband and I want to retire there. But I have a daughter who is in high school, and so we can't retire for a couple of years. So I really hope and pray that you will approve this, so that way I can have a second option just in case these renters do move out. Right now they've been lovely and wonderful, and I plan to keep them there. It's a lot easier than doing a short-term rental, and I know who's in my home. But I need to have a plan B just in case they do move or decide to buy a house of their own. So I thank you very much, and I want to thank Mr. Gronendijk for putting together the plan and helping me through these months. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Great. Just stay there for a minute. I'll bring it back to the commission. Are there any commissioners with questions or thoughts to the applicant? Commissioner Parnell.
Thank you for providing some of the context on that. And I just had one question for you. It's mentioned in the staff report that you would like to have this used for personal events. Can you just elaborate on that for us?
Just personal use. My kids, I asked them, when you go to college, where do you want to go for Christmas and Thanksgiving? And they said, we want to go to Nana's house. So that's one of the nice things about having the short-term rental is I can use my home and pay my bills. Right now I have a long-term renter in there and I can't use it. My son's at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, and he says, I want to go to Nana's house, but he can't now. So it would be personal use. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? And Chair has nothing. Thank you very much for your presentation. And now I'll open up for public comment. If there's any public comment via hands up in Zoom or?
No members of the public on Zoom.
All right, and seeing none in the audience, I will basically move on to close public comment and move on to if staff has any final remarks at this time.
No final remarks.
Okay, and if the applicant has any final remarks? Seeing none, I bring it back to the commission, and I will ask the commission if we have any final remarks. Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, I have some final remarks. I'd like to just compliment staff on the staff report, and I especially appreciate some of the special conditions which were included, specifically to not allow weddings or events, and the requirement that the residents could only be rented out for short-term occupancy for 180 days per year. And I also liked the requirement that the TOT should be paid. I appreciate the applicant's perspective, and I'm not a big fan of vacation rentals, but in this case I think it's probably not a big issue since it's not affecting affordable housing. So I would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution and approve the application for a major use permit for temporary use or occasional use of a single-family residence for short-term rental.
If I may ask, is that the resolution as revised today?
Yes, the resolution
Thank
as
you.
revised.
Right.
Sorry,
All right.
exactly.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
And seeing that we have a motion, a first and a second, do we have any further discussion? Commissioner Pollan?
No.
Commissioner, none and none. And the chair has nothing at the time either. So can I have roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Purnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Purnell, I'm sorry, Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
and Chair Wiedemann.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, and thank you for that presentation. Right, yes. All right. Okay, and thank you for the staff report on that. I also, so now we move to matters from staff.
We have no matters from staff today, thank you.
All right, and then I'm going to go back to the commission, and do we have any matters from the commission? Yes, all right, Commissioner Parnell, it's nice to have you back.
Thank you, thank you. I was here at our last
Yes,
meeting.
you were.
There was a long
I
absence
know,
before
no,
that.
it's good to have you back
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's, you know, we have these comments, and this is good.
Yeah, well, thank you. Just a reminder to staff that I would appreciate, and maybe some of the other commissioners too, just a short VMT analysis demonstration at some upcoming meeting. Nothing that we need to belabor. I just, I think it's a useful tool, and I would like to know a little bit more about it.
All right. Commissioner Jones?
I don't have anything. I was going to make a comment about our missing commissioner, but I hear that he stepped down, so no comment necessary.
And Commissioner Pollan?
Just a question. I was reviewing our bylaws. So are we on for 10 o'clock at our next meeting?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Well, all right. And I have no comments to add. And with that, then, I'll close matters from staff and matters from the commission. And I will invite a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. The Planning Commission adjourns at 10:20, almost, on the September 21st, August. All right.
James.
September 21st.